Hi guys, welcome back to Two Cool from Middle School. It is summer break and I'm so excited that we've got a little bit of time off. I've actually spent this whole week, which is really my first week of summer break, doing a workshop through facing history and ourselves. And it's a lot of work and a lot of time, but totally worth it. I would definitely recommend any trainings by them to you if you ever see any that are in your area. But today we got done a little bit early and I just wanted to sit down and answer some of the questions straight from you from Instagram. I love interacting with you guys on Instagram and answering your questions, and often some of the best answers that I have are just a link to a YouTube video because I just like to talk a lot, and usually I can communicate better through a 20-minute long video than like a quick comment reply. So I like to give people the most information I possibly can. So we're gonna be answering some questions today. I'm also working this summer with Teachers Connect and answering some of the questions from their site. You can find a link to them below. They're a little bit like Instagram or like a Facebook group, but a little bit more exclusive to teachers. So it's just teachers on this social media platform. You can pose questions or you can share and ask for information. So I was looking at the site on my phone and I came across a really interesting question. Someone just posed the question to teachers: why are teachers so against letting students turn in late work? And you can check the website and see there's kind of like a backstory to this question, but just to kind of, make us stop and reflect on our practice a little bit. Why is it that late work is problematic? And just for myself, 3 things came to mind first. And the first thing is that there's often just like a sequence to a lesson or to a unit. So sometimes, we will have already completed some piece of writing, like an essay or something, and then 3 weeks later, I'll have a student turn in like the brainstorming graphic organizer for that essay or whatever. And it just, turning it in now is irrelevant. And that might be a bad example because I probably wouldn't even give credit for a brainstorming activity, but just anything that's kind of something that is like leading up to a bigger project that somebody completes much later just didn't really contribute very much to their learning. And it was pulled so far out of context by being so late that I don't want to see students doing that. Another thing that I explain to my students is that later in life, when things are late, there's usually a late fee. If I turn in my rent late or my credit card payment late or my student loan payment late or something like that, I'm usually hit with a late fee. And that's a bummer, and it's always great when, some institution has compassion on me and waives that fee. But in general, it's definitely good to get in the habit of turning in work or assignments or whatever it is on time. So I want to have the expectation in my classroom that you need to turn things in on time, but I would definitely say that if there's an extenuating circumstance, I would waive the late fee. And my late fee in my class is that you get half credit for late work. And usually this only affects students a few times throughout the year and it doesn't majorly affect their grade. And then of course, if it's like a very big project, I don't have the same policy. I'm not going to give somebody half credit on a huge paper if it's a little bit late. And the third reason is just practical for myself. I usually have between like 160 and 175 students and 3 different courses to prep for. So I've got 1 hour in my day to prep for 3 separate courses and plan and develop my curriculum and prepare any resources or copies or whatever. And it's actually very difficult to fit in that grading and assessment time. And it's certainly easier for me if I can get that all done at once. And if everyone in a class has turned in an assignment, I can just put those all in at once. Any assignments that are turned in late it's just gonna be a while before they end up getting graded and put into the computer. So for the student, they're gonna receive their feedback from me later, and for me it's just more difficult to get those things in. So I think there are very practical reasons that late work is a problem, but I think it's definitely good to kind of reflect on that and think about why we either do accept late work or don't accept it at all, or accept it on conditions or whatever. So good things to think about. Let's jump over to Instagram. There are a couple questions here. I probably won't be able to answer all of them, but let me just pick up a few that kind of stand out. The first one is from Polka Dots of Gratitude, and she says, how do you keep yourself so motivated? You teach, mom, blog, YouTube, and I'm sure other things. What do you do to keep yourself going? And thank you so much for that question. I think that I just do the things that I genuinely like to do. I like to make YouTube videos because I like to talk and I like to interact with people, even through this like social media connection. I obviously love teaching and love momming, and then those things that I don't love so much, I don't spend as much time doing. I should really be cleaning right now. If you could see the rest of our apartment, you would say, turn off that camera and go do your laundry and clean. But I don't like doing that, so I don't spend a lot of time on it. I should really be in the gym a lot more often, and I actually do enjoy that. It's just that it takes so many things to work out perfectly in order to get there, because then you gotta shower, and if I shower, then I gotta decide what to do with my hair, and if I'm gonna blow it out or if I'm just gonna let it be curly, and I gotta have the right stuff, and I gotta change, and I gotta have Jensen at daycare. So it's just difficult. So things that are difficult or I don't enjoy doing, I don't spend a lot of time on, and I just do the things that I like to do. I like to read. I spend a lot of time reading, but I think honestly I need to force myself to do the things that I enjoy less because they are important. What's up, Kyle Thane? He just had a baby boy, and he said, any tips or hacks for raising a boy? I've already been peed on more times than I want to admit. That is definitely a good warning for anybody who's having a boy. You will get peed on many times. One thing that Derek and I are realizing right now just about any kids is once you introduce something to them, it's really hard to take it away, and they have no sense of like balance. So there are these like lullaby shows on TV, like baby TV, that do kind of help him like relax at night. And so we started off, like just by letting him watch those lullabies at night, but then like we let him watch it a little bit during the day, and he really likes the songs and the little characters and stuff. We got like a little Amazon Fire, I think is what it is, for a plane trip that we had to take a couple months ago, and so that was the first time he'd ever seen it, and I let him use it on the plane, and then we were like, well, we won't really use it other than like traveling. But once he started, he really wanted to keep using it. We're like, okay, we'll only do like an hour a day or a half hour a day or something. But as soon as you give it to them, they don't want to give it back, and then they're gonna be mad and they're gonna cry. And it's just really hard to unintroduce something once they know it exists. So think hard before you allow them to try something out. Like, are you willing to fight back against this if it's something they can't have all the time? Because you're gonna fight. You're gonna fight. Another question is, how do you avoid teacher burnout? And I have a video titled How to Avoid Teacher Burnout, and so I'll link that in the little like card thing up here. Another question is, I love seeing all your teaching ideas. Is there a book about teaching or leadership that has really helped you as an educator? I'm looking for a good summer read. So I always like reading about things like kind of on the fringe of education, like not directly related to education, but kind of, and then like applying those things to teaching. And I read Quiet by Susan Cain a couple of years ago, and I also made a video, actually I can link that wherever, about the importance of having introverts in teaching and in leadership, and as an extrovert myself, like what I can learn from them and how valuable it is to have people of different personalities in leadership positions and in teaching positions. So that is one that I think is really useful whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. It's a really good leadership book that's not about leadership. It's a really good teaching book that's not about teaching. Another question is, have you ever dealt with parent pushback regarding restorative justice circles or political activities? And how do you deal with that? I don't actually deal with a lot of pushback, and I don't mean to keep doing this. I'm creating a lot of work for myself to have to link all of these videos, but I have a video about structured academic controversies, and those are something that I like to use to give us like a framework and a way of speaking and a way of disagreeing on issues that's very structured, as the name would suggest, and just allows students to kind of practice getting into that. And it's not really very confrontational or vulnerable for students. It's just good practice. Another thing I would say is that I know a lot of people would call me like politically active, but The things that I share with my students are the things that I'm doing to make the world a better place. So most of you know that I participate in December every year, and I raise money to combat human trafficking. And it's also a social media campaign just to raise awareness about the realities of human trafficking by wearing dresses. So I'm vocal about that, and my students know that I do that. And connected to that is my passion for ethical clothing and fair trade clothing. And I talk to them quite a bit about that. We even have a human rights club at my school that I sponsor, and we bought fair trade t-shirts. So those kinds of things where I'm making students aware of global issues and aware of ways to get involved, and just being an example of somebody that cares about my fellow humans and wants to make sure to use the privilege that I have for good. I mean, I've never had any pushback against sharing those kinds of things with students. In fact, I've had parents come to me and tell me how much they appreciate the fact that I share those things with their kids and make them more globally aware. So I know that this is also very related to the fact that I live in LA, and the culture here is just a little bit more open to those kinds of things. And I know that it must be difficult to live in places that are just more socially conservative, where people often view teachers as kind of like trying to indoctrinate their kids, and they see their role as trying to like protect their kids from that indoctrination. And I don't have that to fight against as much. So I know that my situation is a little bit easier than a lot of you out there. But don't be afraid to share the good things that you do for the world. I think that's okay. This is another good question that I'm gonna have another link to, I'm sorry. How do you survive financially with both? My husband and I are teachers, and I actually just made a video about that as well, all about my teacher finances and how much we make and how much we owe and how much the cost of living is here. And I feel like that video will be very illuminating and might answer a lot of those questions for you. Another question is, actually two next to each other, kind of similar. Would you teach for the rest of your life? Or do you see yourself teaching for the rest of your life, or moving on to other things in the education field? The rest of my life? That sounds so like morbid. I hope I don't have to work for the rest of my life. But I see myself staying in the classroom for the duration of my career. I currently don't really have a desire to go into administration. I think that's probably what they're asking. But I'm also very interested in, doing things alongside teaching middle school or high school in the future maybe. But I'd love to teach at the community college level. I would love to teach history. I would love to teach like history pedagogy in credential programs. So I'm definitely interested in like teaching other teachers and being a mentor of some kind to them, or doing other kinds of trainings about teaching history or teaching writing. I'd love to get more into speaking at conferences and being a presenter. So while I do see myself in the classroom for quite a few more years, I would just also love to have more opportunities to share what I do in the classroom with more teachers out there. And YouTube is great for that, but it'd also be really cool if you guys were like sitting in chairs right there in front of me. That would be cool. This happens really often where I'm able to just send people a link to a video if they have a question. So one is about teaching in circles, and I've got several videos about that. One video is even just straight, like I just put a video camera next to all of my students in their circle and just filmed us doing an entire class. It's like a class and a half of circles. So you can watch exactly how it's done in that video if you'd like. This is another good question. How do you deal with low energy days? I'm a mom and teacher too, and there are some days when I'm just zapped after being up with my baby every hour all night. How do you stay upbeat during those times? And that is very, very tough. I mean, I don't know this for sure, but I think this is just a stage. I'm pretty sure in the future we'll get to sleep again. I think our babies will go to sleep and stay asleep, and we'll be able to sleep. And in the meantime, I have coffee pretty much every afternoon. Like, it's nice to have it in the morning, but I need it in the afternoon. So after I have put so much energy into teaching all day, and then I go pick up my now 2-year-old, I can't continue to give him all of the attention that I want to give him unless I have some kind of a boost in the afternoon. Otherwise I just want to come home and like lay on the couch and just be like, Okay, so drink that coffee or whatever you like for caffeine and just give as much as you can to your students and to your own kids. You gotta make sure that you've got some energy left for them too. This is kind of a funny question. It says, can you please share tips on how to avoid power struggles with a student in the classroom? Because I have a video called How to Avoid Power Struggles in the Classroom. And then it goes on to say, also just first year teacher tips you wish you'd known when you first started. So I made that video actually a while ago, maybe like 3 years ago, so it was closer to when I was a new teacher. I mean, I'm still pretty new. I think this is going to be like my 7th year that I'm going into. And you just grow in like this internal sense of authority. And I wish that you could like bottle that somehow and give it to new teachers, but I can kind of see the difference now between, you know, like when I was new or when anyone is new going in and you're kind of nervous and you kind of doubt your own authority in the classroom. And it does, I wouldn't say that it creates power struggles, but there is just like a certain attitude that goes along with that. I think that the most like insecure teachers are the ones that have the biggest issues with power struggles with their students. So now I've learned so much more about restorative justice and restorative practices, and I'm not so like when you're a new teacher, you are just like struggling to survive the day so often that you don't have like the mental space and the emotional space to really step back from a student that is, you know, really challenging your authority or, you know, trying to get into a power struggle with you. But once you've been in the classroom for a while and you kind of are more self-assured in what you know and what you know how to do, I feel like you're just able to take a step back from that a little bit and know that it's not personal and know that there's always something else going on here, and know that reacting to that behavior is just gonna fuel it. And you do need ways to deal with it and address it, but one thing I would say is that questions can be really good, and just kind of turning things back around on the student. Like, is there something that you need from me right now? Is there something I can help you with? Do you need to take a break? And just kind of give them a voice rather than trying to shut them down. And it's not always gonna work. Know that there's no like perfect magic pill that's gonna work every time for classroom management. This is a good question. I've seen you talk about Rothy's and Teaks. Which do you prefer? I walk to work and need a comfortable flat for walking and teaching all day. Between those two, I would say Rothy's. I think they're more comfortable, and I have a link for $20 off if you wanna click on that below. And then the other flats that I really like too actually are the Root Collective, and they are fair trade, and I just think that they're really pretty and they're really comfortable as well. I think I also have a link for those, so I'll leave it all below. You can just go shop. Okay, let's do one more question. This one says, what are your favorite educational resources for history, favorite TPT stores for history, or any favorite professional development or books for new teachers? I kind of say the same ones over and over again, but I will just keep making these resources available. I love vocabulary. I love reading like a historian. You can just Google it and make an account. I love iCivics.com. They've got really amazing games that teach a lot of like civics stuff that you can use in your history classes. I love DBQs, and either your school can like purchase that curriculum or sometimes you can just find it online. I love structured academic controversies again, and I've got a couple of resources about structured academic controversies, and a great place to get information for those is procon.org. And then for professional development, I would also suggest again Facing History and Ourselves. They do an excellent job with trainings. They give you excellent resources that you can take with you back to your classroom, and they really they do a really good job of like involving you so that you're not just sitting there, you know, for 8 hours of a training like just trying to listen and keep yourself engaged. So they don't do that, but they also don't make you like get up every 5 seconds and like run around the room because I don't really enjoy either extreme, but I like getting involved in like discussions and readings, and they demonstrate a lot of strategies that I would use in my classroom, and those strategies keep me engaged, and I think that they would work well with my students. So I would definitely recommend them. And then another website that's also really good is Teaching Tolerance, and I think that they also have trainings available. So yeah, thank you for all your questions, and hopefully if I didn't answer it, I might have another video about it. I'm getting close to 300 videos on my channel, which is a little bit sad when I think about it. Like, I've sat in this spot in this chair for many hours and talked about teaching stuff. There are still plenty of things that I want to talk about. I have a list a mile long of other videos that I want to make, so keep asking questions because that helps me decide like kind of what to do first, and you guys always give me new ideas, so I will continue to make more. But just know there are a lot out there, and you can just kind of search through some of my playlists and stuff to find things that are specific to your situation. So again, thank you so much for your questions, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye.